Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. Day after Christmas. My Lord, time does fly by. Was it only last year it was Christmas? And now here it is again. But now I'm in a new and different place as far as biochemical wise. I have a lot of different people on my Facebook. The world is a little bit different. It hasn't changed that much, but definitely some, we're getting more information around the world. And, we just keep living. We just keep going. So I wanted to give you more of a hindsight. Hey, Mai Huang, nice to see you. I want to give more of a hindsight on my exposure to a very aggressive virus in my environment, like on the 21st, the same day that I got my period, which is so weird. It's almost like too perfect, like universe, like the stars were aligned and everything was perfect. And my period happened that day on the winter solstice, as well as my exposure to a virus. And how do I know I was exposed to a virus? Because like healing symptoms when you're on the J juice, you're going to have major upsets of homeostasis. You're going to have symptoms that are going to come up. And some of you have predispositions that will kind of jolt you awake, whether you might trigger an upset of homeostasis in your cardiovascular system. You might trigger a symptom in your respiratory system. And so you're going to start feeling some aches and pains. And some of you will probably want to go to the hospital thinking that you're dying, but you're not. You're just going through a healing symptom. But I noticed I've been out and about. It was like last weekend. So I know I was out and about, hanging out with friends and family and all that stuff. And I made some pho for my husband. And then all of those minerals and the nutrients and all of that was in there, great, fed my body. And then I took a nap. And then I woke up with a start. I woke up as if I was actually choking on something. Like, when you've fell asleep and spit went down the wrong tunnel, and then the body is now, you wake up coughing like you're choking. I'm like, I fall asleep a lot, like every night, and I don't wake up choking like my spit goes down the wrong channel. So I'm like, what the hell? And I remember that day, which was like the 22nd, maybe, I think. Or was it the 20th? No, it was the 22nd, yeah. And I'm just like, what the hell? And it was in the afternoon. And I'm like, okay, maybe it was a soup, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, maybe whatever. But my body was getting rid of something that it had too much of. I was blowing my nose, I was just hawking up stuff, whatever. And it was like, okay, interesting. And I was coughing. So I'm thinking like, God, did I just irritate something from coughing? And so I was coughing that whole day. And that's when the next day I was like, what the hell? I had this bout of something. So anyways, let me turn my heater off. Hold on. So anyways, and then I was like a little bit tired the next couple of days, whatever, but nothing majorly like bad tired. It was just like, a little bit tired, and also going through my period too. So I was just like, oh my gosh. So anyways, so that was my exposure to a virus in my environment. Okay. So my body had the strength, it had everything. It knew it needed to get rid of something, and it woke me up and made me get rid of it, which I did. That whole day I was blowing my nose and coughing, everything. And so that's what your body is supposed to do. It's supposed to go through its mechanisms in the process to get rid of anything that is excess. What is excess? It's also called pathogens, because there's nothing poisonous in this world, but if you get too much of something the body doesn't need, it needs to get rid of it, okay? And so you could be exposed to viruses. You could be exposed to or eat something that has bacteria that your body doesn't need at that time. And it may have a low tolerance, and so that's when people get food poisoning and all that stuff. So your body goes through its necessary processes to get rid of stuff. And that's how your body is supposed to work. So as I look back on hindsight, I noticed that my body was exposed to a virus or something that made my body adapt. And so during my period and during that exposure to that virus was an adaptation evolutionary cycle right there. Whenever you get sick, no matter what it is, it's an evolutionary circumstance. So, you know, when you see everybody getting sick with the flu on Facebook, you know they're going through some de-evolution. They're devolving because they're not doing anything else to get to the root cause. They're just taking all their Mucinex and all their pills, powders, and supplements, and detoxes, and prescription drugs, and protocols in the holistic market to suppress the symptoms. So every single season, people are devolving every year, especially around the flu and the cold virus and bacteria. Okay. But with me, I was drinking my juice. I did waterfalls yesterday after, you know, we hung out with some friends and went to a buffet for breakfast, and, you know, and just hung out. And so I did my waterfalls yesterday, and even after all of that stuff that was going through as far as period and the exposure to a virus. And I also drank my juice when I was dealing with some of the symptoms, which was a very mild mucus. Remember, mucus is not bad, you guys. Do not demonize mucus, because that is the body's way of getting rid of stuff, okay? So I was going through a very mild form of getting rid of excess. I did sleep a little bit more, okay? But that's the extent of it. So when your body goes through an evolutionary process while on the J juice, sleep is going to be paramount. You've got to repair. You cannot not sleep, okay? You guys have to realize that when you're healing from whatever, when you're adapting to a new environment, because J juice is like adapting to a new environment, you're bringing in nutrients and acids and electrolytes and water. And so essentially you are bringing in a new environment. Your body has to adapt to it, which means that you got to give it rest. Okay, you got to give it rest. And so whenever my body calls for rest, I sleep, because you don't want to be so productive to where you lose yourself. And that's the thing with balance. You'll understand balance with J juice because you'll be forced to. If not, then you will devolve. And so what's kind of wrong with our society is that we are so into being so productive that we sacrifice the best part of ourselves in order to please others, to be so productive and look like we're accomplishing something, running on that hamster wheel. And then we basically put miles on our body, and we don't get them back because people aren't bringing in the right elements or not resting. And, you know, I mean, I understand that you have to have a job and you have to pay bills, but why don't you cut down your expenses so you're not having to go and support such a large expense account, okay? And start putting energy back into yourself. Because I'll tell you what, you know, you can't take it with you if you plan to die. So you might as well just chill out, cut your expenses, and live continuously in a balanced way. Because in a sense, in running to your death, okay, and that's kind of our society, is we run to our death. We can't wait to accomplish all these things until we pass away. And the whole point of J juice is to realize that you can relax, you can chill out, still get your accomplishments done, still get your bills paid, cut down on your expenses so you're not working for something that you don't need, and you start repairing the damage that has been passed down to you for generations. So I do that. I make sure I do that. I don't hold a lot of expenses. I make sure that I don't have, I mean, I'm not really materially connected to really anything except for, you know, my phone, which is a mode of communication. And that's really about, and my husband. That's about it. I really don't have any material attachments. I want to help the world and make sure that they are healthy, that they're not going down the wrong path. What is that wrong path? If they say they want to live, but yet they're doing things that are totally the opposite of that, that's what I mean by I try to help humanity by not leading them down a wrong path. I say, hey, you have the opportunity to reverse the aging process, get your hormones under control, and then pass that information down to people that you are in contact with or your children. Or you then lead them down a path of destruction, even though it may seem like it's from love and all that stuff. But when people aren't fixing their anomalies, the root cause of their cancer, disease, and chronic illness and aging, it's destruction. Whatever it is that we are doing out there that's not fixing the root cause, it's a path of destruction. And so that's where people get kind of confused, because like, oh my God, this guy is so loving. Oh my God, this guy is so nice. He's so this, he's so that. But yet he's aging. Doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong, because our society has accepted that aging and dying is okay. But when people say they want to live, and yet they're doing complete opposite of that, and they're promoting a lifestyle that promotes death, then it makes a hypocrite out of people. And I'm trying not to make a hypocrite out of anybody. Okay? If you want to live, then it has to be exemplified in your body, mind, and spirit, not just your spirit. Just simply saying that your body and your mind can die, but your spirit lives on, is justifying that you can kind of live this imbalanced lifestyle and make money off it until you pass away, or get all your hits and clicks and likes, and that's enough to feed you until you pass away. And I'm like, that's not the legacy that I want to be leaving. I don't want to leave any legacy. I want to continuously be here to continuously help people say that, or continuously help people do what they say they want to do, which is live. Nobody wants to die today. Nobody wants to die tomorrow. No one wants to die next week. But this whole thing with, oh yeah, we're going to die someday, is just like so prevalent. And then it happens like right then and there for some people, because of what people are promoting, because they happen to have a biochemistry that is giving them, next 10 years. But somebody else living your lifestyle, living your way, doesn't have 10 years like you do. And then your lifestyle that you've imposed upon them has now accelerated their death process. Okay, so everything that we do does influence other people. When you promote pills, powder supplements, and detoxes and holistic remedies, that's why I'm such a stickler when it comes to people promoting turmeric and honey and all these different things on Facebook, is because it accelerates the death process. And I'm not about that. When I know that the J juice is there, when we could be promoting J juice and life and facing the pain instead of hiding behind hormones and oxytocin and love, 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 or hate, 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 or bully, bully, bully. Okay. But that's, that's my goal in life, is to do that. But not everybody has that goal in life, to really code to the root cause of what caused people to die. And so, yeah, when I see somebody saying one thing and doing another, I get really annoyed, because when I see it, sometimes I can't help but see it. Even though I unfollow some people, it still comes through my newsfeed, and then I have to block, because I can't stop it, or I have to unfriend, because Facebook doesn't always protect me from those that are misaligned with my biochemistry. Okay. So anyways, so I'll get off of that little soapbox, but your body has the ability to adapt to whatever new virus is in the environment. And you have to, and so if there are some viruses that are very strong out there in the community, your body's going to go through an upset. There are some very benign viruses that your body won't even really feel if you're on the J juice and you've healed and sealed, because I'm pretty much healed and sealed for the most part, but I still am not immune to my environment. There's always fluctuations, whether it's weather, whether it's people, whether it's just like new viruses. So you're always going to have to adjust no matter what. It's a constant adjustment when it comes to the J juice. Okay. And you have to be okay with constantly adjusting. And I am, because I know what it means when I have to adjust. It means that there's something new in the environment. I have to adapt, which I can. And I feel great. If anything, I feel far more, I don't know, more relaxed. Like every single time I take on a new piece of data, which is a virus or a bacteria or whatever, or a change in the environment, it actually makes me stronger. Because it's like having a new entity merge souls with you, merge biochemistry. So when you have two people, okay, one has a very weak biochemistry, one has a strong biochemistry, and they come together literally and they make a baby, they have become stronger because they've merged souls. They've taken two different worlds, data, and they came together, and now they're that much stronger. And that baby, as long as they haven't inherited so many maladaptive traits, that baby is that much stronger. But now we're seeing a very complete opposite of that. We have now so many people who are so maladaptive or who have so many issues that they haven't resolved, and then they're creating babies that are that much weaker. But when you're on a strong body and you have a union of two different biochemistries, like a virus or a bacteria that is inserting its DNA into your cells, and you're a strong person, you will come out that much stronger. No different than when you have two people that are relatively strong come together and they make a very strong baby because they're both strong. And that's where guiding reproduction wisely is, where part of the Georgia Guidestones, which people are taking as like the new order in eugenics, which is completely the opposite actually. So so there is a way to strengthen yourself when you're around people with viruses, because they're basically, when you're around people with viruses and they're shedding the best parts of themselves. So it's so awesome to be around people shedding all of their bacteria on you and all their issues, but there's only so much you can take. So you take as much as you can, and then you start excreting the excess, or you build boundaries. That's how you have to view the world, is you don't live in a bubble like these people who want to live in a bubble or drug yourself out with love and oxytocin and drugs. No, what it is you strengthen your bodies, and then when people start shedding themselves, which you see all over Facebook, people are shedding themselves. Some people are just too much for me. Some people are just too much love or too much hate, and I have to kind of like, okay, that's too much love. That's just too much hate. I can't deal with that. I can only take so much, okay? And so, so you take the best parts from people. And then when you go to the bathroom and you have mucus, you release the excess. And that's no different in any situation, whether you're in a group situation, you're out there in the world in biodiversity. When you're a strong person, you will be taking survey of your environment, and you're taking the best part of everybody, and you're strengthening yourself. But weak people won't have that opportunity. Weak people will take everything from everybody, and it will degrade them. And it will actually compound their imbalances. So the more somebody throws hate at them and they're all full of love and full of hate, the more they then are imbalanced in their love. And I see that too, because when I, say something like, when I dispute someone that's full of oxytocin and they're so empathic and they're so full of love, and I'm like, dude, what the heck? This does this and da-da-da. Then they throw more love at me. They throw more love at me because that's all they can produce is love. They can't produce anything else. And that's an imbalance. Logic has to come into play over these majorly imbalanced emotions, okay? And so that's when you know you're dealing with imbalanced people, when they can't even see anything else but love or hate or bully. Logic doesn't even come into play. And so that's why I some people are who they are as far as becoming sort of an island, because they know how imbalanced humanity is. And you have people in your world that are going to like throw so much love at you, and you're going to only take so much. You have people that can throw so much hate at you, you can only take so much. And the people that throw so much both love and hate at you, and you don't know which direction they're coming from because you don't know where, what end they're going to be triggered. So you just kind of keep them at a distance, okay? Because they'll switch on you like that. And then you have people that come from logic, and you keep those around because logic will trump any emotion. And that's, the whole thing with the J juice is then you start shedding those imbalances, and you keep people around you that are full of logic, not full of intolerance, not full of love or full of hate. Though, yes, when kids are growing up in our society, they need to have a certain amount of love. I wouldn't say hate, but, you're dealing with a bonding situation where a child has to grow. But I'm not dealing with children I am, but I'm not going to be catering to the imbalances of children in adults. That's not what the JJ is about, is to cater to the imbalances of a childlike type of persona in an adult. No, I want to bring out the adult in the adult. And that probably is the hardest thing to do when you're on J-Juice, is to bring out the adult in the adult when the adult is so imbalanced and they're not going to do J-Juice. So you can't really reach them until they actually see a reason for themselves to do it. Okay. So, so that's kind of like the interesting part of J-Juice, is reaching people beyond their imbalances and showing them that maybe you can get your hormones under control. and maybe some logic will come out, and then that logic will then turn into a specific measurable result where you actually reverse the aging process. Because how do you know when you've balanced out your love and your hate and your adrenaline and all of that? Is when you actually reverse the aging process. You regrow your hair, your skin, and your nails, and you start seeing a change in what you post. You start seeing a change in your friends. You're not going to have the same friends anymore, because those friends are now going to be too much of any specific emotion, any specific hormone. Okay? I mean, when you're on the J juice, drugs aren't even going to affect you. You're not going to have any desire to drink or do drugs or play with ayahuasca or play with all these different things that people do when they're on that death trajectory. Okay? So even drugs are going to be immune to those that are on the J juice. Or they won't have even a desire for it. It won't even cross their radar. So that then brings me to this, this thing with the genealogy stuff, is that we are, we don't want to deal with inbreeding, because what is inbreeding? When you have a family that has already a set of predispositions that are pretty aggressive, and they stay within that family and create children from that family, which is against the law, it makes those predispositions that much stronger, which then will eventually destroy that genetic line, because no one is bringing in a different bloodline to then offset those predispositions to give you different ones and maybe compensate for those weaknesses with different strengths. So that's why we don't have inbreeding, and that's why maybe some of the royals, like in King Tut and all those different royals in their pure bloodlines, have gone a little nuts because of the inbreeding. But now here's the thing. They didn't have J juice back then. They don't have J juice. Even some people out there, like in the royals. I mean, I'm not surprised they brought in that girl that was, half black and half white to marry Prince Harry. Because they need some new blood in that family, okay? They need some new blood in that family. And so yeah, when you have such a very pure bloodline and they're not doing J juice, they're not correcting their issues, you're going to see degradation. But now, what if, you do this inbreeding stuff and then you do the J juice? Then you start fixing those weaknesses. But that's not what people are doing out there. They're having babies with either their inbreeding or their crossbreeding, whatever. And everyone is now equally maladaptive. And so you're seeing a resurgence, of course, of diseases, and then also more exotic diseases. And so now we're seeing with the whole thing with the J juice is that people that have different components, different issues that contribute to autism and other cancers, childhood cancers, they're seeing now with the J juice a reversal in some of those maladaptive states. So I'm going to read this from someone, and he didn't even put it as a testimony, he put it in as a comment in the group, but not as a testimony, but I made it a testimony because I want people to see this, because it makes sense. So this was in response to blisters and shingles and all those things that someone sent me a private message with a picture of blisters. I don't know how they got the blisters or where it came from. I don't care. A blister is a blister. Where it came from doesn't matter. Okay, it's an anomaly in your integumentary system, your skin. And so the J juice healed his blisters. How long? I couldn't tell you either. It doesn't even matter, because everybody's biochemistry is different. But he said, I remember way back in the early time of original group, someone getting blisters all over their hands, and she was purging shingles. I believe back then. Okay, so they knew they were purging shingles. So then he goes, my son swears that JJ purged something out of his brain once. He just kept saying, it's gone now, Daddy. It's left my brain. This is an autistic child, okay? He just kept saying, it's gone now, Daddy. It's left my brain. And he became much more social from that point to this day. He talks with 2 memory timelines now, and often says that when I was autistic brain, funny he seemed to have kept the genius side, that often comes with autism, but is a very social young man now. And I'm not discounting puberty, though. So when someone has autism or any kind of cognitive disorder or any type of diagnosis or symptom that manifests in like depression or something, or darkness, it feels like something has lifted off that limited them from expressing. Like they feel these feelings, but they can't express it. And that's exactly what I felt in the beginning of J-Juice when I noticed that a complete calmness washed over me. Like one day I remember sitting back in the chair in my room when I had the desk in my room. I'm leaning back in the chair when I was first doing the Facebook Lives, and I'm just sitting back going like, wow, I'm so much more relaxed. Like a complete calmness just came over me. And that's when I knew I was onto something as well. I mean, I also knew I was onto something when I started losing the water weight and shedding the, and shrinking my fat cells. But I noticed that systematically I was reconfiguring my brain, my emotions, everything. And I didn't know what other stuff I was going to be reversing, because that came into time as I was going through the protocol. And I had to go through my own hell, like all of you are going through your hell as far as predispositions and seeing them. But that's telltale as far as autism, because there's kids that are born with all their cognitive abilities, and then their predispositions start triggering, and you don't know what triggers. I mean, there's so many things that can trigger somebody. It could be a food, it could be the environment, it could be the fact that who knows. There are so many triggers in the environment when you have a weak body and you have no idea your predisposition. And so you kind of have an idea through family medical history, but that still doesn't tell you everything. Because now you're exposed to new viruses, you're exposed to new people, new data, new world. Because let me tell you, the 2020 is nothing like it was in 1985. Completely different. So you have no idea what's going to trigger what. And so, yeah, when kids start losing their cognitive ability and they start losing their verbal, their way to speak and all of that, and you've lost your child through autism, that's something on the brain that's suppressing it from being able to express and regenerate and doing whatever it's supposed to do through its growth process, or something stagnating the growth process, and then having them regress back to the state prior to them learning and developing. And so when the J-Juice, you bring in the proper nutrition, you got to go through the pain and the healing, the waterfalls, all of that. You start seeing things lift off that was suppressing you, limiting your ability. And that's one of the biggest things that's hard to explain to people when they're so used to operating in a very specific way. Some people can have a very, excellent way of communicating and articulating, but they have major physical disabilities. Not that it would be diagnosed where they would have to have a handicap plate, but they have major autoimmune disorders that they've managed through pills and prescription drugs, or they've taken out organs of their body and they're on prescription drugs forever. And so they don't know anything but having to take migraine medication. They don't know anything but having to take thyroid pills for the rest of their life. They don't know anything but taking chemotherapy pills to manage their autoimmune disorders, their lupus. Okay? And so imagine if you gave somebody an opportunity not to have to take a pill or a powder or a supplement or a detox, and they got their life back prior to them being diagnosed. Or if someone was born with all of these different diagnoses, imagine where they can live in a world where they feel like they're so free, they're not imprisoned in the body of their disabilities. And so that's one of the biggest things about J-Juice. It gives you so much freedom that you didn't even know you had. It's like when like a flea in a jar and you have the lid on the jar and they jump as high as they hit the lid, and then take the lid off, they still jump as high as where the lid would be, because they're so used to jumping this certain high, they're used to jumping to a certain height. They don't realize that there's a big world out there. And that's kind of like the J juice, is you're now going to be experiencing the blind spot that you didn't know that you had. And that's hard to get across people, because they think that their world is as far as they're going to go. But imagine if you can go further than where you have set your limitations. And so, you know, when I was in landmark education a long time ago, back in the early 90s, which gave you more of a mental way of breaking from your limitations, but then it's very difficult if your body, mind, and spirit are not aligned. So you're always having to go and mentally go and do an upload every so often to kind of recharge you. But that's kind of the way J juice is now you're aligning the body, mind, and spirit. So you don't always have to be recharged to go to a seminar to remember that you are not your limitations. But now your body is going to let you know that you don't have those limitations. And that's one of the biggest things about J juice, is that now you can align your body, mind, and spirit. And so your mind says, okay, you have no limitations, so to speak. Your body says you don't have the limitations based upon the, you know, the universal limitations of the body. We can't fly yet, but who knows? Maybe down the road we might. I'm just kidding. I have no idea. But and your spirit will tell you you don't have the perceived limitations. Your biochemistry, your spirit is your biochemistry. Okay? So a person that's autistic has, you know, that knows that they're autistic, not the ones that just cannot talk, cannot walk, you know, there's some that are nonverbal. They still wear diapers, and they really, the only way they can communicate is just like, give me water, give me food, and change your diaper. And that's it. There are others that know that they have autism and they're relatively functioning, but they have no control over their emotions. So they're always getting triggered left and right. And you don't know what's going to trigger them. But medication has kept them relatively under control. Well, when they do the J juice, they're going to start seeing a systematic freeing of the, like, releasing of the shackles. Okay? And that's exactly what that testimony was saying, that this kid knew that he had issues. And then he did the J juice, he started seeing those shackles disappear. And he still remembers what it was like. It's not like your body's going to forget. Believe me, I don't forget what I went through as far as PMDD, which was my curse, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I don't forget all the hell that I went through going through those fluctuations. I don't forget all the way people treated me back then too, but I don't fault them, because that's the only way they know how to relate to me is through whatever is manifesting. But now that we know that this disease does exist, and it's, people can be a bit more sympathetic with people who have hormonal imbalances with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. But it wasn't very popular back then. It wasn't really known. And there's nothing I could tell my boss, oh, I have my period. And maybe, like, everybody has our freaking period. Not everybody gets those types of major fluctuations. So, but now it's becoming more prevalent. Okay. So, so anyway, so yeah, the J juice will set people free when you think about it. It will set people free. And so that's why I push it. That's why I get so mad at people that promote the turmeric and the honey and the elderberry syrup and the kombucha, and they've been listening to me for freaking months and days and years and whatever. And they're like, oh, well, I'm going to decide for my friends and family that they can't do the J juice, that they can only do the kombuchas and the apple cider vinegars, and be afraid of the water and be afraid of the air and be afraid of the sea. And there's no reason to be afraid of anything when you get your body well balanced. There'd be no fear. The only fear you have is somebody that's in power that has their hands on the button. Okay? That would be the only fear, and that would be a legitimate fear, because you know you can't control that. But we have enough people out there to watch and help and hopefully redirect. Okay? But there's some things you just can't control, so you don't worry about what you can't control. But you can control your biochemistry. Okay? You can control that. So being in an environment where we have the EPA and the FDA and the CDC and the WHO and the USDA and CPS and all these different government agencies, that yes, they may have some, you know, different imbalanced people, but overall, the agency overall has a very good intention behind it. They're like, oh yeah, you know, the road to hell is paved by good intentions. No, but they know they don't want to see their environment and their constituents all die. Like literally all die. No, they want to keep a relative universal health, public health in the environment, and then it's up to you to then really be meticulous about your own health. rise up above your station if you choose. Okay? So the J juice gives you guys the option to do that. And it's not antibiotics, been tested by a lab, a food lab. I've been quizzed up and down by all different agencies. Okay, my own government as well as the federal government. So I have my state officials investigate me as well as the feds investigate me. And I'm perfectly safe. If anything, if I need to email one FBI agent that I talked to, that I interacted with, I can do that if I ever run into any issue with anyone that's mischaracterizing me or threatening myself or anyone else in my world. Okay? So if I'm on that kind of communication with the feds, they know exactly what I'm doing. There's nothing that I'm doing that's dangerous. And so now it's up to you guys to say, okay, is cabbage, water, and salt everything that it says? And it brings up pain. Well, why would something that's not poisonous bring up pain? Maybe I'm supposed to feel pain. Maybe I'm supposed to feel the healing in my body. Maybe everything that they've been doing out there in the allopathic holistic has been totally wrong. Maybe you got to face all of your family genetic history. Okay? And if you're so afraid of high blood pressure, well, you have inherited traits of a weak cardiovascular system. You got to deal with that. And if you don't want to deal with that, then you have no one to blame but yourself. Okay? Salt has been grossly mischaracterized by people with fear. People are like, oh, I'm going to do the J juice, but I'm going to cut the salt down. Well, then don't even bother doing the J juice if you're going to mess with the recipe. Don't even bother, because you're not going to get the results you're looking for. You got to face the pain. And if you have hypertension in your family, if you have high blood pressure in your family, that means you have a weak cardiovascular system and you have major hormonal imbalances, and you got to face that. And if you don't want to face that, then don't do the J juice and stay on that very predictable trajectory. Because I'm telling you, those are not doing J juice are already seeing what they're going to be going through because they just look at their parents and their grandparents. It's their whole outcome has already been laid out for them. So with J juice, we're now saying, okay, you don't have to end up like your parents. Because inevitably, your parents are not going to do the J juice, and they're going to end up dying. We'd be like, well, that's okay. Okay, then don't do the J juice. Don't try to change up that whole notion that you don't have to die. So, so the thing with the J juice is that it'll actually slow down the death process, but you got to stay on it. But those of you who are on a track to pass away and you're already imbalanced, the J juice isn't going to hurt you because you're not even doing it. And even if you did, it's not going to hurt you. But your perception around it is a little skewed. But I've already been investigated by everybody. The government is there for a reason, to make sure we don't have quackadoos out there. And that's why they're coming down on the holistic community, because there's so many unregulated holistic supplements and holistic protocols that are causing more imbalances in children. Because your body's made up of fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals, and all of these different conglomerations of acids and minerals and hormones, and all of that have now caused more imbalances in children. When you see parents or mothers giving elderberry syrup to their kids, when you see parents shoving kombucha or apple cider vinegar or onions or garlic down their child's throat, or having a child take so much onions or so much garlic as if it was candy. Okay, you're causing more imbalances, destroying the microbiome, leaving that kid open for a virus to then go and scan the environment and trigger some kind of disease. So there is nothing but the J juice, really. And that's and that pisses some people off. But hey, you have two choices: indefinite life or indefinite death. You only got two choices. What is it? Eyes above, so below. It's all about balance. So I know some of you that have been on the J juice, got off the J juice, get on the J juice, got off the J juice. It's harder every single time you get back on the J juice. And if you're not doing J juice at the level that you should, and you get off it for a few years, and then now you're diagnosed with something crazy, you'll be faced with 2 options, 3 options: chemotherapy, cannabis, or J juice. And it'll be easy to do the cannabis. It'll be maybe easy to do chemotherapy, but it'll be so much harder to do the J juice because now you're that much worse than you were before. So, you know, the time is now for all of you, but it's not going to happen for all of you. I know that. But anyways, so, you know, I just take every year in stride. I'm so much more relaxed. You know, Christmas to me is like, okay, it's a great tradition. It's fun to see everybody and pass down these traditions of presents and getting together. My family's scattered everywhere, and we kind of do our own thing, and I'm fine with that. And they've created their own families and their own traditions, which is so great. And then I kind of like my husband and I will go and intrude upon other people's traditions, and we get invited to, we don't like crash parties and everything, but we get invited to other people's traditions, and that's fine, and we're okay with that. Okay, it's not all families are so like close-knit. Some families are very, you know, stagnated, or they're doing their own thing, and then you create your own family and your own traditions type of thing. And so, but it's just another holiday that we see, and then we constantly compare what the holiday was like last year as compared to today. And I will tell you, I look forward to every holiday because it tells me that I'm another year into the J's, another year amazing, another year seeing such great testimonies. And time is on our side. No matter what, time is on the J juicer side, because it's not going to be instantaneous that you're going to be healed and sealed. It's not going to happen tomorrow if you just started it yesterday. For the J juice, it takes, I mean, you had systematic degradation your whole life. You're not going to have a total systematic, you know, upgrade your whole life, but it will, first in the beginning, it's going to be really, really intense because you have so many intense issues. But you will see yourself adapt, and you will still see changes even in your 3rd or 4th year. But I didn't come in with too many predispositions. I had PMDD and some other issues, viruses I've been exposed to, that all came to surface and then disappeared. And now it's just adapting to the new viruses in the environment. My body is not going to take any hits because it's going to, you know, heal itself. I have enough on reserve, and I take in nutrition, and I'm pretty strong. So now it's just me adapting to all the different changes. That's what the whole J juice is about. Is first you adapt to the J juice environment, you heal and you seal, and then you start adapting to, and then you will be adapting to your regular environment, and it'll be that much easier, and you won't take on those predispositions anymore. And maybe you might not want to reproduce, because that's one of the biggest things about J juice. It's going to lessen your desire to reproduce, whether or not that's your intention. Okay. It's going to lessen your desire, which means it'll give you more energy to then help humanity who's already here, not bring in people who may have a lot of predispositions, but you actually will work with people who are already here and helping them. Okay? So you're going to see a lot of changes in your biochemistry, a lot. And then you'll see the world totally differently. And that's, you know, and that's exciting. So every year I get excited. I'm like, can Christmas go by faster? Can we be 10 years into this now? I want to be 10 years into J juice. I want to see all the testimonies and see all the differences. I'm telling you,